Hello and welcome to another edition of Pulp Picks. My name is Patrick.
I'm Fritz.
And we're here to give you this week's reading recommendations on New Comic Book Day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, every once in a while, a couple times a year, we run into a month that has 5 Wednesdays.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the case here, which means typically we see fewer titles coming out.
Mm-hmm.
On the DC side, we tend to get annuals on that 5th Wednesday of the month. And we've got an annual to get us started here. So while the number of titles might be kind of slim, the quality is still there, and we've got a bunch of them for you today.
Yeah, so my pick this week is Nightwing.
Skateboard. Oh, no. Hey, there's a forklift out here. What's going on?
I'm not really sure what that's about.
Yeah, funny. Oh, it's Culligan.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Anyways, so who predicts that happening? But my pick this week, I'm sure you've just been staring at us jabbering about what's off screen, so you can tell already, but it's Nightwing Annual for 2025. So this issue, it's the reteaming of, it's Dan Watters, who's been writing the current run, and Francisco Francavilla, who did the 2-part kind of like Into the Dark, where it's like this like cop killer and everything, very Commissioner Sawyer centric. And they're back together to tell the story, kind of like actually give you the lowdown on. There's been this woman who's kind of been at the center of like all this like weird stuff happening in Nightwing recently. She's like running this company that's like providing all these like crazy armaments to the city of Bloodhaven. There's something really like messed up with her. Like she's got this connection to this like otherworldly being. And in this issue, we kind of like actually start to really understand like what all that's about, like how she became the way she is, like why, like all the stuff that kind of like culminated in that. And it's kind of like, it alternates between like Maggie Sawyer like investigating it, like trying to track down these leads. We get these kind of flashbacks to when the woman questioned Olivia when she was younger. And it starts off with kind of like we get this kind of Frederick Wortham figure who hopefully everyone here is familiar with the comics history. He's the reason that we had the comics code for decades and decades.
Right.
Yep. Like real, I don't know. I'll be PG about it. Real not nice guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we get this whole the issue starts off with this character who also happens to be her dad, is like giving this whole spiel about like, oh, comics are like ruining the youth. They like tantalize. They give bad morals. Yes, yeah. Like these poor innocents. They're being what is the word? Yes, but but yeah. So we get this whole bit, and then it's like it's interesting how this issue kind of like takes elements of like bad elements of like the circus, all these things, like these elements of comics history that in a lot of ways kind of like maybe not be as like common or at the forefront as people who've been reading for a long time are aware of. Because there's always the thing that gets brought up, like, oh, the reason Superman's designed the way he is because it's reminiscent of like circus strongmen.
Correct.
Like the entire like thing, like the cape to like show motion in a comic format, like it, like, and it's not just like taking a look at these as kind of like superficial, like surface level elements of like the genre and everything. It like actually kind of like delves into like the nature of like why people like circuses, like how that translates into why people like comics.
Correct.
And what that actually kind of like means in like a cultural way. And it's because again, like you always you hear the Superman thing, you don't always actually stop to think about like, oh yeah, like the actual like how these things like build over time, like how these kind of like themes of like entertainment connect through history.
Yeah.
And the way they do it here, and how it ties into like Olivia's whole thing, this weird entity that seems to be like empowering her, kind of controlling her to maybe a certain extent. Like it, the way it all comes together, and then again with the whole like Frederick Wortham thing of just like how society then will also like want to clamp down on certain things.
Correct.
How it wants to censor things and make it so you can't like access stuff, which who knows, maybe there's like some of that out there in the world today going on.
I have heard that if you get your child a musical instrument, they'll stop playing billiards. So that's
was that an actual thing? Is that why that was?
That's the plot of The Music Man, which is the exact same thing.
That is the plot of The Music. I have my as someone who has definitely seen that movie, the thing I mainly think of anytime I think about it is just a bunch of people going shaboopy. So
yeah,
like it just goes on repeat at a certain point.
My second favorite role for that actor after The Last Starfighter.
Oh God! Oh God! You see, connecting threads.
Yeah,
that's what we do here.
Yep.
God, now I don't know much about those movies. Actually,
right? I'm pretty sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost positive that's the same guy.
Wild.
Yep.
But yeah, no, and the interesting thing is, so like, if you are reading like the main Nightwing book, so Nightwing isn't actually really in this issue at all because he's off dealing with some stuff's happened to Titan's Tower, so he's got to go deal with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is like. Pretty much like Maggie is the protagonist of this issue, and it's really cool getting to see her like kind of like connect these thoughts. Like she gets to go to a comic store, and it was honestly kind of surreal, like watching someone come in like, "Hey, I've got a question about this," and like so the person there being like, "Oh yeah, let's go to the back issues." It's like,
wow,
yeah, no, it's like
trippy.
Oh, it's like we're there.
Yeah,
but yeah, and again, like having Frank Avila do the art, like he brings this like very moody, haunting vibe to everything. There's these like moments of like where like very overt sinister like stuff, but other moment like there's this moment where this one writer character is just like, do you ever feel like the people reading your stuff just are not connecting with the thing you're trying to like impart with them?
Sure.
Like just this like quiet dread in that moment is just like really good because like I don't know, I've seen plenty of things where people like completely miss the entire point of like
what that never happens.
No, yeah, it's like it's wild, but no, it's a really fun issue and like how it ties into the overall plot that's been going on in Nightwing, but it's also just like a really good issue and how it like kind of like investigates, interrogates these other like kind of like fringe elements of comics culture that just like don't get brought up enough, and again just perfectly illustrated by Frank Avila. Like it's just like absolutely gorgeous. As much as I love Dexter Soy as like the main artist, anytime he shows up, it's always a treat.
Yep.
And they're very two different styles, so it's this kind of like nice contrast between them.
Sometimes I almost think that works better when you're flipping between two, but you know,
and that's the thing because they very much fit like the style of story that they're trying to tell in their stories. Like you wouldn't have Soy do this as much as you wouldn't have Frank Avila do the stuff that he's doing. Like it's a good way to kind of like tell you right away, just visually, like, oh, this is the kind of story you should expect versus this is the kind of story you should expect. Yes. But hey, speaking of a book that has a little switch of an artist.
For sure.
Yeah.
So here's one that I've been enjoying and I feel like has been underrated. We haven't had it on here in a long time. But I went with The Incredible Hulk number 27. So Kev Walker has been doing the art for the last 2 or 3 issues. I can't remember off the top of my head. They all blend together after a while. But you may remember him from the somewhat recent Guardians of the Galaxy run that he did, Groot Fall story arc and all of that, which was very fun. But we still have Johnson writing this book. And so for those of you that really enjoyed Immortal Hulk by Al Ewing and then fell off of Hulk because of Donny Cates, which now has been wrapped up a couple years ago. So Immortal Hulk was more a horror book, right? And then the Donny Cates book was more a sci-fi book. Not that there weren't some horror elements to it, I guess. I mean, it was kind of mad scientist kind of horror, I guess. But, I mean, as one does with telling stories about the Hulk, it's the battle, the constant between those two is the battle between Hulk and Banner and who's going to have control and how is one suppressing the other, right? So in Immortal Hulk, you had the Green Door and all of that, right? And it got way more into kind of horror and Lovecraftian almost.
There were like a lot of like esoteric elements, like a lot of occult stuff. If you like get into, and then like a lot of like older mysticism.
Elder gods and stuff like that.
And then like biblical, like a bunch of things. Like very clearly, like Ewing being like, here are all my like favorite little interest. Let's wrap this in a like cool way.
And also did some awesome concepts where he was kind of taking the science of Hulk in a direction that created some new kind of, I don't know, baseline power set isn't quite right, but we find out that you can chop Hulk into pieces, and he's going to continue. Combine back together. And
it was very much about like how the things that we know and the things that we think we know are not always like completely true, and how things can be like there's kind of these like murky in between areas where stuff like science and magic can kind of like meet the things that just cannot be explained. And something like the Hulk is just something that can't always like you can attach labels to certain aspects, you can like understand certain aspects, but the Hulk as a whole is like it's kind of like in some ways not completely knowable being that like he just kind of is. And that's something I think this book has kind of like dealt with too, of just like there are these like things that you like, some of the, like you can attach these like ideas and concepts, these mythological leanings to it, but then there's also just like that doesn't like get to like the full depth of like what it is to be the Hulk.
Precisely. And you know, as we're looking at how Kev Walker drew a number of the panels in this book, and we talked earlier about the comic code. So the comic code, when it came out, a number of the things that it was trying to get rid of was the occult and anything supernatural and stuff. So you couldn't like have vampires or werewolves or you know, that kind of stuff. And a lot of the books at the time leading up to that were horror, science fiction, you know, a lot of occult kind of themes. And then after that, you kind of ended up with that, and we've talked about this with, you know, Superman and Batman became shiny representatives of the American government and so on and so forth. And there also was a World War II aspect to a lot of that stuff. Where, you know, selling war bonds and supporting the troops and doing that kind of stuff. But this was a whole nother level. And then the 60s roll around. And the comic publishers that were left standing, particularly DC and Marvel, that were getting back into telling superhero books, because those had died off before the comic code came around, started kind of dabbling a little bit in pushing those boundaries. And Hulk is kind of one of those characters, right? Where it's like, we're going to do a science fiction book. We're going to base it on some horror stories because there's, you know, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was a big influence for the character. So we're going back to the roots in an interesting way in Immortal Hulk and now this Incredible Hulk run by Philip Kennedy Johnson, in that we're getting into the horror aspect. So we're just wrapping up a major story arc that started at the beginning of this Philip Kennedy Johnson run, where Hulk had a sidekick, for lack of a better term, which is also just classic storytelling, right? Like, and Hulk begrudgingly allows this character Charlie to hang around. Meanwhile, Banner's in the back of his head just screaming like, this is not safe for her. We need to get her away from us. So that whole story arc is wrapped up for now. It had a type of conclusion. And so this one is kind of an interlude book, which is awesome. We've talked about how Fantastic Four, you can pick up just about any issue in this run, and it's a self-contained story that ties in with everything else. But this one in particular, if you're looking for a good jumping on point for Incredible Hulk, this is a good one to pick up, because Hulk is in between whatever, you know, the whole adventure that he just had with Charlie and that kind of getting wrapped up to an extent, and now where's he going to go? And this is just that in-between issue. And I described it to you as kind of like a Twilight Zone issue. And I don't want to give too much away, but suffice it to say, this issue allows the reader and Hulk to kind of reflect upon how he approaches his relationships with other people. And, you know, part of that is Banner, because Hulk and Banner are fighting over control, but it's also, you know, the innocent people that he just kind of happens upon. And how does he handle those relationships? is getting involved the right thing, is not getting involved the right thing. But it's got I don't know, it's just, it's a cool Twilight Zone-y kind of issue. And I really like that kind of classic storytelling where you're doing some fun twists and turning things on their head and surprising readers. And I just really enjoyed it. And I like Kev Walker. I know that there were some people who didn't care for him on Guardians of the Galaxy, but that's the case with any artist, right? But I like the style. I think that this book has been, because Nick Klein has been the regular artist for a long time on this book now.
Yeah, still doing like the covers and everything.
Yeah, and I really dig Nick Klein. You can tell that Marvel likes him because they've had a couple boxes with his Hulk art on it come out recently on the comic storage boxes. But I just think, to me, that's, that big lumbering kind of ape-like Hulk. I just prefer that as opposed to like the Professor Hulk with the crew cut and whatever. I don't know. But anyway, all right. Well, we both kind of rambled a little bit this morning about kind of the inspirations behind comic book stories and storytelling and the history thereof. Now, let's go to our consensus pick. Yeah. And...
so, to probably no one's surprise,
the reigning champ.
Ultimate Spider-Man issue 19. We are in the final phase, because if you didn't hear, at San Diego this last weekend, they announced that issue 24 will be the end of the comic. We're getting into, because like we got Ultimate Endgame coming up. We're probably getting some kind of like relaunch in like the spring or something for the Ultimate books.
Yeah, almost certainly. Yeah. So the news coming out of there was that Marvel specifically said there is more to come from the Ultimate Universe. So the reports of it canceling the Marvel Universe after 2 years are... it's not so much that like things are ending as like this certain like era, like the era of the Maker is going to be ending soon. But before before we can get there, we've got there's still a whole lot of fighting to get done before then. And we've got Spider-Man and his allies taking on the Kingpin and his allies. And it's getting real messy real quick. Really? So last issue dropped out at kind of a cliffhanger, right? So Peter and Mary Jane's son Richard has been running around with, nanobot suit, I guess, for lack of a better... and it has some properties that are reminiscent of another suit that has shown up in Spider-Man lore. And it also has Peter's personality programmed into it, which makes for an interesting back and forth, because the suit's main directive is keep Richard safe.
Yeah, which is especially interesting in the context of the one scene, like, this is supposed to be like Peter programmed in here. What does that tell us about?
It is interesting. Yeah. Well, and so I did have that thought as I was looking at that panel, and part of me was like, oh, this could be a dark side, right? Yeah. And the other part of me was like, no, this is kind of like the dad equivalent of the mama bear, like, cute and cuddly until, cubs are in danger, and then, rawr, that was terrible. I really regret putting that out on the internet.
Too late, everyone clip it now. Use it for...
roar. Yeah. So, use that as your text message notification or something. But, this was really good. And it also, I was a little worried that the Black Cat character was going to become a little too flat. And I like the way that it ended up going.
The way that they're handling her relationships with the different groups that she's kind of like aligned with is very interesting. And speaking of like dynamics, like this is very much an issue about like how like all these characters are kind of like at like the breaking point with each other. We get a meeting of the various Sinister Six members, and they're so close to just kind of like snapping on all of each other. Like they're like, there's this moment where one of them's just like, well, hey, I could do this thing. The other's just like, don't you dare. Like it's like there's that. We get. I know there's a lot of people. One of their complaints has been that like arguably like Mary Jane's been like maybe too like passive when it comes to like a lot of the stuff going on with like Peter and their kids and everything. And here there's very much like her being like, okay, we gotta like actually talk about this, like, because it's one thing when it's like Peter out there like doing all this stuff and he's got these powers and everything, but like her son is in there now, like he is like in it and like very much like a part of it. And that's a lot to have to take in as a parent. I'm sure that you like can.
Well, and I really appreciate the dynamic of Peter and MJ and them having to handle a tough parenting situation, and how not only that, but then also their current living arrangements, and throw on top of it all of these, crazy supervillains who literally run the world and are trying to find them and kill them. It just makes for such an interesting story, and I just, to me, there are plenty of books of young forlorn lovers who are looking for someone to connect with, and it's like I feel like the Spider-Man character grew out of that a long time ago, and it's so refreshing to see him taking on kind of these problems that are bigger than himself on a personal level and on a superhero level. And Hickman is just doing a masterful job of allowing you to really connect with all the different characters, because in that scene with Richard and Peter and MJ, you are relating with all three of them.
Yeah,
in
like
that scene.
They're like, everyone's upset, but everyone's just like, but I've got to, like, this is the way I've got to like handle this, and like they're all like right at the same time. Like it applies to like other, like there's this great conversation between like Peter and Mole Man, and just like you like the way that these characters bounce off each other, because it's like when you say that out of context, it's just like, wait, why is Spider-Man and Mole Man? And then it's just like, but no, in this scene, like you kind of get like why like you have this dynamic between them now. Yeah. And also there's just a great bit about like, wait, how do your powers work?
Yeah. That was really good too. Yeah, I enjoyed that. Yeah, it's really good. And of course, the art in this is just amazing. Chichetto, or
I think it's Chichetto.
I believe it's Chichetto, but again, I'm proven wrong all the time. Has been just fantastic. It's just such a perfect fit. It's so good. All right, well, so these are the three books. We said that it's kind of a limited number of titles this week, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't a bunch of good stuff. What else did you like?
Yeah, so other good stuff. Like Ultimates came out this week. That was also very good. There were some really good Captain Hawkeye moments in there.
Yeah, so no spoiler, but we saw the second iteration of the Avengers team on panel with Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver show up in this issue. They're on the cover, so
not a
if you didn't figure that out, with Hawkeye and Cap.
Yeah.
Very fun.
Yes, very fun. There was the new Garth Ennis book, The War, that came out that we were talking about before. Yeah. And it's very interesting. I really feel like I need to still see where they go from here with it, because like
they're gonna have to get there quickly.
Yes, it's because they're setting up all this stuff. It's very much like of the times, I would say. Beautifully illustrated by, I think, Colin, I believe is the last name.
Oh, it's right there. So.
Yeah, Becky
Cloonan. Yeah,
Cloonan.
Becky Cloonan. Yeah. She's done a bunch of other stuff. I can't remember what else off the top of my head, but yes.
Yeah, no, like her stuff is always good. But no, those were good. I don't know, anything in particular for you stand out?
Yeah. So the new Speed Racer book came out. That was interesting. They're doing some slight twists on some things.
Does he still have the monkey?
There is still a monkey. Yes, still a monkey. I didn't read much of Heavy Metal 2, but like if the original Heavy Metal magazine was your jam, this is definitely.
I flipped through it. Gorgeous art.
Fantastic. Not for our more prudish readers out there, I guess is kind of the way to put it. It it's a whole bunch of, it's an anthology book. So it's a whole bunch of short stories in there. It's really cool. It was one of those where I thought like, hey, a bunch of our local creators have this kind of vibe to their art and storytelling. They should really try submitting some of that stuff in for it. We'll talk off screen about some of them that I thought were really good. But yeah, what else was out this week that I really enjoyed? I know that I read some. I wanted to get the news from the fall because we got second prints of number 1 in, and number 2 came out this week. Superman number 1 facsimile is super cool. Yeah. But also on the exciting news front, we just got a massive restock of graphic novels in across all different publishers. There's a ton of stuff. And in the process, we had to thin out some of our graphic novels. So there's a whole bunch of new stuff that's going to be hitting our discount graphic novel shelf. So if you're not a frequent visitor here at the store, you may not be aware that we have a huge section of dollar comics that range from new stuff that we either just got too much of or didn't quite come in the condition that we were hoping that it would, so it's kind of more of a reader copy, all the way to old stuff that maybe is just underappreciated or not in highly collectible condition but still good reading condition. And then we also have a 50% off gently used graphic novel section, so when people come in and trade back graphic novels, we sell them at half off. And sometimes we also end up with some inventory that we've just been sitting on too long and we clearance it. So there is a bunch of that stuff that has been put out recently, and it's people come and spend a whole afternoon here just digging through those sections. Well,
and the cool thing is, especially with the discount stuff, is like you were saying, like a lot of it's like modern stuff or like common stuff. Like you'll be able to go through and you'll find, like in the graphic novel section, you'll frequently find like, oh, this is like a pretty popular like Batman run or something like that, just because like sometimes people need to downsize the collection or they want like a newer version of like it. So you'll be able to find like a lot of the common popular stuff, but also some of this stuff is just like stuff that you really don't see anywhere else. Like there's some stuff in there that's just like either the company doesn't exist anymore or just aren't like printing it. Like you can just like find things that you wouldn't be able to see on like even like our normal shelves or like a Barnes & Noble shelf. Like it's such a cool way to find these like little hidden gems.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that kind of does it for us this week. I'm excited for next week. There's all kinds of good stuff that's coming out. I'm already looking at the previews for next week and getting excited.
Oh, were we supposed to talk about Fantastic Four?
Oh, 2 thumbs up for me.
2 thumbs up for me. I think that makes that 4 thumbs up.
4 thumbs up. Pretty much everybody that I've talked to has enjoyed it. So it was a classic Lee Kirby kind of Fantastic Four story. I really loved. I was very worried that they were tackling things that had already been tried to be done on movies in their previous iterations. But it was almost kind of like Marvel was saying, like, no. This is how you stick the landing on a Fantastic Four movie when you're tackling Galactus or, handling the inter-family relationships of the Fantastic Four. It just felt so much more genuine the way that they all interacted with each other.
You want to know one of the craziest parts about it is? Matt Shakman, the guy who directed it, so he's primarily been like a TV guy. And you want to guess what show he's done the most work on?
What?
Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, it's weird knowing the guy who did like the water park episode did like this really good superhero movie, isn't it?
That is really bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Now I'm picturing the Always Sunny cast as the Fantastic Four, and that's trippy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to be the conversation for the day in the store. Well, like I said, there's a whole bunch of new books coming out next week. So next Wednesday we'll be here with more Pulp Picks. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, share, comment. Stop into your local comic shop because that's what keeps this whole industry running. It's all run by a whole bunch of small businesses around the country and around the world. that get the physical comic books into your hand, and without you stopping in to pick those up, none of that happens. So we will be back next week. Until then, enjoy the reading. Yeah. Well, D obviously is Sue. D
Oh,
is
okay.
Sue, right?
I thought you were talking about the letter D, and she's like, what are you talking about?
Mac is Human Torch. Because I think it's funnier if Charlie's the thing.
This is true.
But those two could go either way. It's just that Charlie's so inept with dating. I don't think he works. And I guess he could be Mr. Fantastic.
Well, the problem is that there's
because
5
of his
of
crazy
them.
rants at the board. Well, no, yeah, so I thought about that too.
Because, I mean, you could make Dennis Dr. Doom.
Oh, you could make Dennis Dr. Doom. Or you could make Charlie Dr. Doom. Or you could make Frank Mole Man.
Yes, okay, Frank is Mole Man.
Okay.